in the heart of Alaska, where no one dares to go, where every shadow hides a deadly threat, and no one is truly safe here. Predators roam freely, hunting in the shadows. But who is the real danger, human or beast?
The wilderness of Alaska is one of the most beautiful places on Earth. But it can also be one of the most dangerous. Thousands of miles of untouched forests stretch across the state. Mountains tower above frozen rivers, and in many places, the nearest neighbor might be miles away. Out here, nature is powerful, and when something goes wrong, help can be days away. But sometimes, the greatest danger in the Alaskan wilderness isn't the bears or the freezing cold. Sometimes, it's another human being. In the spring of 1997, deep in the remote backwoods of Alaska, a peaceful weekend getaway would turn into a horrifying mystery that left investigators stunned, and a small community living in fear. 2 people would be found dead. A killer would vanish into the wilderness, and the truth behind the crime would reveal a darkness no one saw coming. About 200 miles from the nearest major city sits a place called Chulitna. Calling it a town would be generous. It's little more than a railroad stop surrounded by thick forest, icy rivers, and endless wilderness. The people who live here aren't looking for comfort or convenience. They're looking for freedom. Most cabins can only be reached by train, a TV, or by hiking through miles of rough terrain. There are no supermarkets nearby, no hospitals, no quick emergency services. If you live here, you survive by preparing for everything. Firewood must be chopped. Food must be hunted or stored, and every winter brings months of isolation. But for Rick Barry and his wife Debbie, that rugged lifestyle was exactly what they loved. Rick was a 48-year-old electrician who had spent years working hard to build a peaceful life in Alaska. Debbie, 40 years old, worked in customer service for a utility company. Friends described them as deeply in love. They dreamed of eventually retiring to their quiet cabin in Chulitna. Far away from the noise and stress of city life, the wilderness was their escape, their sanctuary, and every chance they got, they spent their weekends there. But Memorial Day weekend in 1997 would be different. Rick arrived at the cabin first. Debbie planned to drive up the next day to meet him. It was supposed to be another peaceful weekend in the mountains. But by Monday morning, something was terribly wrong. Debbie's brother, Don Tidwell, received a call that instantly filled him with dread. Debbie had not shown up for work, and she hadn't called. That wasn't like her. She was responsible, reliable, and she always checked in. At first, Don tried to stay calm, but the uneasy feeling in his gut wouldn't go away. The deeper he thought about it, the more something felt wrong. So he made the long journey out to the couple's remote cabin. What he found there made his heart sink. The cabin looked abandoned. A beer sat on the table. Cheese and crackers were still laid out. It looked as if someone had simply stepped outside and never come back. The couple's 2 dogs were trapped inside the cabin. They were anxious, pacing, and the floor had been soiled. Anyone who knew the dogs knew that wasn't normal. Something had clearly happened. But what? At that moment, Don feared the worst. Maybe a bear attack. Maybe an accident in the wilderness. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to discover next. The following morning, Don began searching the surrounding area. The woods were quiet. Too quiet. Then he noticed something disturbing near a nearby creek. Rick's 4-wheeler was sitting in the water. That was impossible to ignore. Immediately, Don called the Alaska State Troopers. Investigators rushed to the scene and began searching the area. Within hours, they made a chilling discovery. A body. Rick Barry had been found in the creek. He had been shot in the head, execution style. This was no accident. This was murder. And suddenly the situation became even more terrifying, because Debbie Barry was still missing. Investigators now faced 2 horrifying possibilities. Had Debbie witnessed her husband's murder? Or worse, was she somehow involved? At first, police couldn't rule anything out, but Debbie's family refused to believe she could have harmed Rick. They insisted something terrible had happened to her too. While troopers searched the area, Workers installing cable nearby provided investigators with an unusual clue. They had heard gunshots during the weekend, and they had seen something strange at a nearby campsite. Hanging from a tree was a pair of women's underwear. Investigators quickly located the camper responsible, a 21-year-old man who admitted hanging the underwear as a joke. But after questioning him and checking his DNA, police realized he wasn't their killer. The investigation had hit a dead end, and Debbie was still missing. Then, 7 days after Rick's body was found, search teams made a discovery that confirmed everyone's worst fears. Hidden beneath grass and tree branches near the creek, they found Debbie. She had been shot to death, and the evidence revealed something even more disturbing. She had been sexually assaulted. The brutality of the crime shocked even seasoned investigators. Now the case had become something far darker than a simple murder. Somewhere in the vast wilderness of Alaska, a violent killer was still free. Investigators began digging into the couple's life in Chulitna, and soon, one name kept coming up: Paul Stavanger, a strange and reclusive mountain man who lived about a mile from the couple's cabin. Neighbors described him as unpredictable, sometimes charming, sometimes deeply unsettling. Years earlier, he had helped commit one of the largest bank robberies in Alaska history. After serving time in prison, he returned to the wilderness and lived mostly alone. But there had been tension between him and Rick. Rick believed Paul had stolen fuel and equipment from his property. The two men had argued before, and according to neighbors, Rick had threatened him. When investigators questioned Paul, his story didn't add up. He claimed he had been out of town during the murders, but none of the places he mentioned could confirm his alibi. Then came the final piece of evidence. DNA taken from Paul matched the evidence found on Debbie's body. The suspect had finally been identified. But when troopers went to arrest him, Paul Stavanger was gone. A massive manhunt began across Alaska. Investigators feared the worst. Paul knew the wilderness better than anyone. If he wanted to disappear, he could vanish forever. For 4 weeks, there was no sign of him. Ten Sudan Lee, he called his attorney. He was ready to surrender. At trial, Paul claimed the shooting was self-defense. He insisted Rick had caught him with Debbie and opened fire first. But investigators believed the truth was far more calculated. They believed Paul had been waiting, lying in ambush. When the jury heard the evidence, they didn't believe his story. Paul Stavanger was convicted of 2 counts of murder. He was sentenced to 198 years in prison. Today, the remote forests of Chulitna remain quiet and beautiful. But for those who remember what happened there, the wilderness will never feel the same. Because in a place where danger already hides in the shadows of nature, one man proved that the most terrifying predator of all is human.